Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Andrew Donovan. Just over a week from now, early voting will be underway for governor, Congress, state senate, and assembly. But also in Onondaga County, sheriff. Republican Esteban Gonzalez, the sheriff's chief custody deputy, is running against Democrat Toby Shelley, a career-long police officer who's run for this job before. The winner will replace retiring Sheriff Gene Conway, who chose not to run for re-election after 2 terms, 8 years in office. Crime and policing are among the most popular issues of the day and of this campaign cycle. This week's broadcast is designed for voters to hear from each candidate. Republican Esteban Gonzalez joins us shortly, but first we'll hear from Democrat Toby Shelley next on Newsmakers. Joining me, the first of 2 candidates, the Democrat. He's running for Onondaga County Sheriff Toby Shelley. Mr. Shelley, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
This will be your 4th run for sheriff. Why?
I'd say 3.5.
3.5, okay. Why do it again?
It's the right thing to do. The people of the county deserve it. Definitely the people within the Sheriff's Department deserve a reset.
Well, let's talk about that. Why, I guess before you could reset, you got to get there. Why do you think this candidacy will be different than the other 3?
Well, we've worked hard over the years, and we have name recognition, and that's a lot of what you're working for, which you already have. And fortunately, we have an opponent that's not a police officer. You know, there's 58 sheriffs in New York State, and only 55 are police officers, and the other 3 come from sheriff's departments and don't have police divisions. So we're fortunate to have the candidate we do. We were very surprised that Esteban got the designation.
Fortunate because you don't think he's up to the task?
Fortunate because I think the public wants their top cop to be a cop.
Okay. Now, I mean, playing devil's advocate, he does work for the sheriff's office, so he's worked directly for the sheriff for a number of years. Doesn't that give him insight into another side of the operation? He
has insight because I haven't worked there in several years, but I bring a team of 180 years experience who are all insiders within the Sheriff's Department. And keep in mind that sheriffs come and go and the place keeps operating. There's very qualified people within the Sheriff's Department. We'll keep the place running through the transition.
You say a team. Do you have people that you'd elevate to key positions the minute you take office?
All my team has been in place for months, if not years.
And who are those people?
We'll find out after I win. I'm not exposing those people today.
You haven't worked for the sheriff's office in about 10 years, but from your memory and from your awareness of what's going on since, and perhaps some intel from people that still work there, what do you think needs changing in the office, in the department? The
biggest thing that needs to happen within the department is improving morale. Because when you improve morale, you do away with a lot of your sick leave problems. You solve your recruiting problems, personnel problems, on and on. Improving morale, John Dillon ran on it in 1978. It's a big issue if you actually spend the time to think about it. That's going to be one of the number one challenges we're going to have.
What do you think the morale is now, and if it's not good, how do you think it got to that position?
I don't think the current administration would survive a vote of confidence. I know they wouldn't.
What do you think's happened in the years that Gene Conway's been there for that to be the case?
I'm not going to sit here and say bad things about Gene Conway. He's not my opponent. I know what I hear from within, and people are tired of cronyism, nepotism, favoritism, things like that. All the isms have to go, and you have to bring in fairness across the board.
The policing profession has taken such criticism the past several years. What has to happen in Onondaga County for the sheriff's office to be what you consider a modern police department?
I think the Sheriff's Department is a modern police department, has been ahead of the curve for years. I don't think that's the issue. If you remember Kevin Walsh, he's a very visible sheriff. And for whatever reason, Gene Conway isn't as visible, and I think the sheriff needs to be a very visible person. He needs to connect with those communities, something I've been talking about since 2010. And those things need to happen. I'm going to look to appoint a director of community relations just to connect with those communities and build that public trust. So if we have a major incident like a George Floyd incident, I can tell the public, I can tell the press, trust me while I'm doing the investigation, while I'm getting the facts. And we need to have that connection. And of course, once we get all that, we tell the truth, however it works out.
The sheriff's office has gone through some high-profile situations. We know one of the deputies there who's stole money. His wife is accused of helping steal money. But then there's the officer-involved shootings, which happen in different departments every so often. Are those both situations you're referring to where you'd want investigations to happen, but you'd want to be out there ahead of it, talking about how the department's handling it?
Well, as sheriff, as the top cop of Onondaga County, nobody's going to steal $500,000 and told over $1 million from the sheriff. You have to have accountability. That was lacking there. I would have accountability. Two people need to be keeping track of money like that. Officer-involved shootings, that's a challenging one. I've been involved in a shooting in 2007 after I came back from Iraq. I've walked in similar shoes, being a veteran as well. But you have to walk in those shoes that day to understand an officer-involved shooting, something my opponent has no experience in.
What needs to evolve for officer or deputy training? I mean, obviously the officers react in real time, especially when they use a gun. But does more have to be done on de-escalation? Does gun use in those moments need to be put further back as an option?
I was just at the Cicero Chamber of Commerce talking to people who deal with mental health issues. And one thing, for example, which would be easy to do is training in autism. It's a common thing we deal with, but if you don't know the basic things about not raising your voice and not moving, whatever, bring training to them. A lot of the work police officers do is social work. It's not actually chasing bad guys, it's social work, and we could improve some of that training.
A buzzword in so many campaigns has been bail reform, that term, and a lot of Republicans have blamed it on the increase in crime, but sometimes it's also a scapegoat. Sometimes the crime cannot be attributed to those policy changes. What's your take on how bail reform has come from the state level and its impact on Onondaga County?
Well, I will say that only one politician asked my opinion about bail reform, and that was John Mannion. And I wish the politicians that put that into effect would have asked people that it affects. And I didn't see that happening. And bail reform affects me directly. I mean, our district attorney is saying that crime has gone up 52% in Onondaga County since bail reform went in place. I mean, my observation as a police officer about bail reform, it was done with good intentions. Trying to help people and fix the disparity between people who have money and don't. I think it's having bad results with more crime and things like that. And I also think it's making victims out of people we're trying to help, because a lot of our crimes are done in the inner cities, and those people are victims of the people that probably should be in jail. And those are the people, in a large part, we're trying to help. So we're making victims out of the people we're trying to help. It doesn't make sense to me. But the sheriff has no control over bail reform.
No, but you'll be in a difficult situation to deal with it. How would you go in on day one knowing that you have to police Onondaga County in this era of bail reform?
Make it known to my police officers that in almost every crime there's a victim. And regardless of bail reform, if it's a revolving door, we have no control over that. We do a good job like we've always done. If they go in the front door and out the back and we have to arrest them for something else, we do a good investigation, we do our jobs. There's victims in this thing.
You talk about the morale issue that you say is a problem in the sheriff's office right now. I'm sure that if that's the case, it's not helping attract and retain deputies. We know a lot of police departments are having a hard time keeping officers, finding officers when there's vacancies. Other than the morale issue, what would you do to attract new deputies and keep your staffing level where it needs to be?
Well, it really goes back to morale, because when you improve morale, I was asked, I met the DSBA, the jail union, back in May, and an African-American deputy, female, asked me, what would you do to hire and recruit more people of color? And I asked her, well, you tell me. I've never walked in your shoes. You tell me. But I can tell you this, if we improve morale, if I said, Matt, this is a great place to work, come on over and work here, you'll come over. We're not going to recruit people by having a table at the mall. That improve morale and people tell their friends this is a good place to work, that's how you do your recruiting.
So we have just about 90 seconds left. I'll let you speak to the voters. They have two options when it comes to this race. Why should they choose the Democrat, Toby Shelley?
I think it's very important to know that I have a very diverse background. My 30 years in the military, Obviously, my police experience, I'm in my 29th year now, and you can't police and be the sheriff from a desk. It's not strictly an administrative position. You know, when the sheriff shows up on a scene, a high-profile scene, guess who's in charge? The sheriff. And if you don't have the background of taking those serious calls, and you know, I'm a nationally certified incident commander. I've commanded a lot of calls in the military and in the police end. If you don't have that experience, how are you going to keep the people of Onondaga County safe? I think it's extremely important that your top police officer, your top cop, be a cop.
All right, Toby Shelley, really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We know that early voting gets underway, absentee ballots are already out, and then Election Day is just under 3 weeks away, so thank you so much. We'll be back with Toby Shelley's opponent, the Republican, on Newsmakers after this. Newsmakers is back. We've heard from the Democratic candidate. Now it's the Republicans' turn. Joining me now is Esteban Gonzalez, a candidate for Onondaga County Sheriff. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
It's good to have you here. Your opponent had about 10 minutes. We'll give you about 10 minutes to answer some questions. You've worked for 3 sheriffs. You were hired under
Sheriff Dillon.
Dillon, yep. And then Walsh,
Yep.
and now Conway. So you've worked for 3. How would you be a different sheriff?
I would be a different sheriff because I believe I'm a blend of all 3 of their leadership styles. And it's necessary to have the leadership experience at the very top of the organization in order to understand the needs of society, the needs for public safety, and the changing demographics of our community and the changing times. So with 30 years of experience in the sheriff's office as a full-time law enforcement official, that's a unique position that I'm in that I bring to the table.
How did you feel that you wanted this job? You saw 3 people work the job. Have you always been attracted to it? Why now? And what made you say, let me go for it?
As I got promoted up through the ranks, I got interested after I became chief, and I looked at what's next in my professional career, but more importantly, I saw the divide in the world. And then most recently, I saw the divide between law enforcement and the public, and it made me realize that now more than ever, we need leadership, we need common sense leadership, we need experience at the very top, and somebody that can bring everybody together. I have so much of a background in our community that I absolutely believe I am that law enforcement leader at the top, knowing all of the other law enforcement leaders around Central New York that will bring us all together.
Your role in the Sheriff's Department right now is you're the Chief Custody Deputy.
Yes.
That means you're not a cop. You're not someone out on the street patrolling like so many sheriffs have been. Your opponent says that's a good thing for him. That means people will be attracted to him. But you also think it brings a different perspective to the sheriff's office. First of all, why isn't it a problem that you weren't ever a cop on the street? And why is that maybe a good thing in terms of the perspective you can bring?
Great question. I'm a certified full-time New York State peace officer, so I'm the law enforcement official certified as a peace officer in New York. They are so similar that we train them together. We have an academy starting in December where peace and police officers are in the same academy. According to Albany, according to the Municipal Police Training Council, they're 90% the same. So we train together. But beyond all of that, the sheriff's office is made up of custody, correction, civil, and a police department. The largest component of the sheriff's office is my responsibility. Corrections and custody together make up more than half of the sheriff's office. Police is the next biggest department, and then the civil department. So the bottom line is, I'm already commanding 2 of those departments. I'm already at the table commanding more than half of the sheriff's office. So not being a police officer, although I am a peace officer, has no relevancy because the sheriff isn't driving a patrol car, sheriff's not walking a tour in a jail, and the sheriff's not serving civil process. The sheriff's an administrator who is over the budget, over personnel, over resources, over connections with the community. That's everything that I've done for 10 years as the chief deputy.
Are there any gaps you'd admit to that you'll have in the job? Any learning you'll have to do to learn that policing side, or is that the role of an undersheriff, or are you appointing someone special in that area? How do you make up the difference?
Great. I absolutely am going to hire a police chief with police experience. I'm going to fill the vacancy that we need for an assistant police chief, and I intend to appoint an undersheriff with police experience. By surrounding myself with the police experience, they will round out my team. So I'll have the expertise on the corrections side, and I'll have the expertise on the police side. All those people just report to me, brief me on a daily basis to the goings-on of our community and public safety in our community.
Your opponent paints a picture in the sheriff's office of a department that has a not visible leader, the current sheriff, with a morale problem. I'm wondering if you agree or disagree with either of those, and if you think that there's anything you'd do to improve that once you take office if elected.
Okay. I intend to be a very, very visible sheriff. I intend to be out and among the public. I have great working relationships with many business owners, many people in the community. And going to the morale question, morale in general in law enforcement went south with a lot of the recent incidences nationwide. So we had a lot of people leaving our industry wanting to get other employment. So we can always improve on morale. We can always improve on what we do. Morale is intrinsic. We can give everybody the tools necessary to make them effective and make them safe on the job, and we can do the best we can. And I will lead from the front and show them that it's a proud profession. They should be proud of the uniform they're wearing. And in that manner, once we start recruiting more officers back to the job and leading from the front the way I intend to, I believe morale will increase in the sheriff's office.
You work for Sheriff Conway, so I expect you to be gentle in your criticism, but are there ways specifically your leadership would be different from his?
We're different people, and it has to be different. I love to do an inclusive approach to my leadership style. I love to get intelligent, forward-thinking individuals around me, glean information from all of them, and then come up with the best path forward based upon that. I intend to reach out to people in the community. I'm going to create a group called LEAD. It's the Law Enforcement Advisory and Direction Group. That is a group that I intend to have civilians from all around the county, towns and villages, and the city of Syracuse working with law enforcement to be the eyes and ears in the community to be able to show us and tell us where are the hot spots of crime, where are we getting it right in public safety, where could we do better, and in that manner be able to work cohesively. That'll be twofold. It'll attack crime more efficiently, but it'll also bring the community closer to law enforcement.
You mentioned the criticism that the law enforcement industry has gotten over the past few years, and some of it's warranted, and some departments have to modernize. How would you modernize the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office?
In a number of ways. I have a 7-point platform for law enforcement excellence. The very first thing is we need to recruit for the vacancies. Once we have enough officers in uniform, I want them to be reflective of the demographics that we have in our community. So first and foremost, we need to diversify our department. We also need to keep up with technology and social media. The criminal element is doing it, and we need to keep pace with them. We need to understand that there's a lot of technology out there, including improvements to 911, improvements to undercover technology, things of that nature that can make us more efficient in solving crime. That and a number of different things that are on my platform if you visit my website.
A Republican buzzword lately is bail reform. Mm-hmm. There seems to be some credible criticism of it, but it's also seemingly a scapegoat, that everything is blamed on bail reform. What's your take on that issue?
I oppose bail reform the way it came out, the result of it. I wasn't against reforming anything. In fact, I have never been in favor of a debtor's prison. It's not a crime to be poor, but it is a crime to get out of jail under the new bail reform and then commit more and more crime and be a danger to society. So I oppose the results of the current bail reform, so I'd like to have the bail reform reformed. Because there's 400 crimes that used to get you arrested that now no longer get you arrested. And I've seen the rising crime rates in Central New York. In Onondaga County, they're up over 50%. And I see a revolving door, in part because the the handcuffs were taken off the criminals and put in part on the criminal justice system, and judges need to be able to consider the dangerousness of criminals when they are talking about setting bail.
We have about a minute left, so I'll give you that time to tell voters why they should pick you.
Okay. I'm a full-time law enforcement officer. I've been with the sheriff's office for nearly 30 years. I've risen through all the ranks, promoted up from sergeant, lieutenant, captain to chief. I'm a chief serving 10 years to 2 different sheriff's administrations. So I'm already leading the sheriff's office as we sit here. For the last 10 years, I just want to move to the sheriff's chair at that table. I have a vast resume and a background in all 4 departments. So I understand intrinsically everything that goes on in the sheriff's office. I've been a duty commander responsible for the entire sheriff's office, including the police department, and I'll bring that skill, knowledge, and ability to the office of sheriff.
All right. Esteban Gonzalez, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck to you. Good luck to your opponent. Absentee ballots are already out. Early voting will get started, and then, of course, Election Day coming up in November. Newsmakers will wrap up after this. You can hear from the candidates again. We'll post this broadcast, each conversation, on the Newsmakers section of localsyr.com. Don't forget, there's another big race we're watching to replace retiring Congressman John Katko. Democrat Francis Cannoli and Republican Brandon Williams will debate here on News Channel 9 Thursday, November 3rd. We hope you'll join us. Thanks again for joining us for this edition of Newsmakers. For all the hardworking people of News Channel 9, thanks for watching. Be sure to get out and vote when you have a chance, and have a great weekend.